Hey y'all, welcome to the Filling Station. I am super excited, y'all. Looking at the market, let me first go ahead and give my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I just enjoy teaching people how to build generational wealth. And yes, the stock market is one of those avenues. So this video is for educational purposes only. With that being said, y'all, let's get started. We are looking at the SPY. And as you can see, y'all, the SPY had a low of this 541.61, and we hit this at 9:30 this morning. That's when we kind of like broke out of the gathering spot, came down. That 541.70 is what I have marked here. And as you can see, we came back, price came back up to this level, back to our gathering spot here, right? Only to this come to this ATR trail and stop. And I know it may be a little different to see. I'm gonna make it came up to this ATR trail and stop here, only to get rejected, and we came all the way back down to that 541.61 instead of 71. So we broke through that. But looking at it on this 5-minute chart, we created a double bottom here, right? So that double bottom is a signal that it's probably going to reverse back to the upside, right? So that is a confirmation for me that, it's possible to look for a upside move for the SPY. So let me go back to, this is the double bottom area here. We made 1, 2, 3 higher highs. Let's see if we can make that. And I have a lot of marks on the chart, and it may be easier to just take those off. Let me see. But we have there was a lot of support and resistance areas, and SPY was also an inside day candle today, and that's why it's really important that we mark those, because the target for SPY was 543.35, and as you can see, we are well above that level. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that so that I can make the charts a little bit clearer, so I can point out what I need to point out for this video, right? So I'm going to move this little blue line also so that we can see. Okay, so the SPY had a double bottom here, which is here, and then we bounced off of that, made 1, 2, 3 higher highs. That's a second confirmation for me. And I knew that we was going to have trouble at this green line here and this white line here, so I needed to watch, right? So the 5 and the 50 crossing here is another confirmation to the upside for the SPY. So there's double bottom here, 3 higher highs here, 5 and 50 crossing here. That is another signal for me to the upside. So even though we moved sideways here, if you didn't enter the trade on this side here, and I'm going to zoom out in just a moment because I want to show you what the MACD did. So if you did not enter the trade, at the bottom on this double bottom here in the 3 higher highs, 5 and 50 crossing, it chose to go sideways or create a gathering spot for us. It created another gathering spot right here at the 542.77. So let's say we didn't enter the trade at the bottom and we just decided that we was going to wait because we did have a little bit of overhead resistance, right? So if we would have waited and entered the trade here and entered at the breakout here, it still would have been a good trade because we broke out of the gathering spot, made a new high here, and we continued to the upside. So if we would have entered the trade, this would have been a really good trade, right? So what I wanted to point out is how the MACD is looking, right? So this is the area where it broke out of the gathering spot around 11 o'clock. So this candle here, look how the MACD lines are really close here, but they start fanning out and getting a little bit more separated here. So that would have been okay. That would have been okay for me to enter, make sure that I was entering the trade, or if I was already in the trade here, I could have stayed in it and just rode the 5, because as you can see, it stayed above the 5 EMA. So if we would have entered, let's just say we entered the trade here around the 542.77, SPY hit a high of 548.53. So that would have been a nice trade to the upside, and our decision making would have been, we had a double bottom here, we made 3 higher highs, we consolidated, the 5 and the 50 did cross, right? We broke out of another gathering spot, and again, this is the 5-minute. We broke out of another gathering spot, which is here, only to make higher highs here. We created another gathering spot. That's that consolidation area, right? That's where price is just moving along this area. We broke out of that gathering spot here. and we start making another high. So do you see how the MACD lines are really, really close here, and then they start separating to the upside here? That is a confirmation for me as to it's okay to follow this ride the 5 to the upside, right? I'm super excited at this because it's really, really a good trade. So looking at it from, from here, again, we would have waited on it to make this double bottom, 5 and 50 crossing, MACD separating above the 5 EMA, and we're making higher highs. We're just riding the 5. So congratulations to all of those that got into the SPY today, because this was a really, really nice move. So where are we now? SPY has made a high of its 548.53. So we need to definitely watch this level, right? Because it could very well, come back and retest this, or we can run out of steam and come back to the downside. Look at the MACD. It's really, really close, and it looks like it's trying to cross here, right? Let's see if we can. It looks like it's trying to cross. Let's see if we can. Yes. MACD looks like it's trying to cross to the downside. So is the SPY running out of steam is what I need to watch. So right now the 5 EMA is our support, right? So it's finding support at 547.93, and it looks like we're running out of steam here. So I would set an alert to let me know if it breaks below this 547.64, because that means we could very well be heading to the downside. Our MACD has already given us a signal here that it's something going on in this area. It was really, really close, and now it's trying to separate here. So I definitely, if I'm in this trade, I would have been out, me up here, but if I'm still in this trade, I would definitely watch the 5 EMA as support and the low of this candle here of the 547.62. My MACD is giving me a signal that something is wrong. And one of the things I always say is to be grateful and not greedy. If you got into this trade down here, around the 542.77, and you sold it up here at the 548.53, that's a really nice trade. And trying to get a few extra cents or a few extra dollars, yeah, it is good to add. However, you don't want it to have a sudden move and then it drop, and then you lose a good portion of the profit that you had, depending on how many contracts you had. So I would say trade carefully once you get to this place, right? So again, the SPY is above the 5, finding support at the 5 EMA right here at the 547.90, 547.86 area. It looks like it could very well come back down and find support here at 547.18. And if we lose this support, 546.60 is our next level of support. And one of the things I also like to see, I don't know if whatever moving averages you use, if you can see the 5, the 20, the 50, and my VWAP, all of them are fanned out. I like to see that they're not bunched together or jumbled together. And that's a clear signal for me that we are trending up, that we are moving to the upside. I am above my 5 EMA versus, a bunch of lines like this here. As you can see, these lines are kind of jumbled together. There's not a clear signal, but once they crossed over and got, aligned, they got aligned. And as you can see, we're moving to the upside. So yeah, you want to make sure that you have make sure you have confirmation as to why you're in the trade. What is your reason for being in the trade? And we found several reasons for the SPY to the upside today. 1, this double bottom again, higher highs. 2, MACD starts separating here. 3, 5 and 50 crossing here. 4, we're breaking out of a gathering spot here. 5, only to go back to the upside here, which is really, really, this would have been a very, very good and profitable trade. It's not something that you have to be in and out, in and out. It was a very clear trade. So yeah, I hope this is very, very helpful. And as you can see with the SPY, we are under now the 5 EMA. So are we going to break under the low of this candle, which was at the 547.64? That's something that I would need to watch. It looks as if the SPY is the MACD gave us a signal here. It gave us a signal that we were getting ready to have a little trouble. So would I be in this trade to the upside? Probably not. I would have gotten out at this point. But again, it's your risk tolerance, let me say that. So it looks as if we're headed, it's getting ready to come back to the downside. There's my signal there that it has broken below that candle, which was here, right? So our next level of support for me to watch is around the 547.29, which is really close to the 20 EMA at 547.22. So again, looking at the MACD, that's one of the things that I really look at to stay in my trades. That helps me a little bit more, because sometimes the candles can be doing something different, and then the MACD is showing me a different signal. And one of the things I try to focus on is what is the MACD doing, and it was one of these areas that had that. And here, if I would have entered at this double bottom here, there was a separation down here of the MACD, but as you can see, that line kind of got close, but it didn't cross. So it would have been okay to still be in the trade, you know, even though it's the same day expiration, you're not making money going sideways like this, you know. So I would say be careful with that, but you could have gotten in for a scalp double bottom here, get out here, and then wait on it to make a decision here. But if you decided to stay in, the MACD gave us a signal. Even though it separated, it never crossed back to the downside. So I would have still been in the trade to the upside. So that was something that I really, really wanted to point out. The MACD helps me a lot as to if I'm going to stay in the trade or get out of the trade, because sometimes what I'm seeing with the candles and what I'm seeing with the MACD is not the same. And as you can see, the SPY is declining. You know, it seems like this is our gathering spot as of right now. Let me see if I can mark that. It seems like it's trying to break out of a gathering spot. So this is where price is as of right now. And it looks as if SPY is trying to break down from that area. So if it should break the low, let's see, the low of this candle was 547.31. If it breaks that 547.31, we could very well come back to this 20 and then to this ATR trail and stop. It wouldn't surprise me to see the SPY sell off or come down, because we've had a nice run up thus far, and SPY normally moves, let's see, about $5.13 per day. And I know my charts look a little bit congested. It's because I do a lot of charting and I have a lot of lines. I try to, you know, fade them in. But this is the SPY on the 30-minute chart, and we marked that gathering spot on the 5-minute chart. And as you can see, this is where we are. You know, we could very well come back down to the 546.92. So I normally mark this area here, 546.92, and I know that that is trouble place for me. That means SPY could very well come back to this area, and I think it was 96, come back to this area and find support, right? So if we decline where we are now, we can come back to this area, 546.96 as support. And guess what? I see that, which is right at this 20 EMA here. So we could very well come down, find support, and bounce. But again, this will be our resistance area. So it's very important that we mark this gathering spot area, because that can be a very, very strong trade for us, a very productive, profitable, let me say that, a very profitable trade, y'all. So again, I hope this has been a really, really good example of ride the 5, wait and finding your confirmations. We had several confirmations today that SPY was going to the upside, and I'll mark those again. The double bottom here, looking at it on the 5-minute chart, 3 higher highs, that's number 2. MACD is separating here, that's number 3. 5 and 50 crossing is number 4. It broke out of a gathering spot, or you know, the consolidation area here, which is 5, which also caused our MACD lines to separate. Now, if you're looking at the RSI, this above this red line here tells us that we need to be careful in that area. It can stay above that red line for a long, above this line in the red here. That means it's overbought. We can stay in that for a while. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to sell off right then. So that's something that you definitely need to be mindful of. But I would look at my MACD to help me in that area and make sure that my candles are somewhat in line with that. But again, we created another gathering spot here, only to go back up. So we had so many confirmations today, y'all, that SPY was moving in the area to the upside. So when I always say wait on confirmation, make sure you have other confirmations as to why you're entering the trade. And right now we are creating a gathering spot, and we're still trading in this zone. So if you are in a trade, I would say be careful. And if you're looking to get into a trade to the downside, it needs to break a few levels before we do that. Again, our MACD has already given us a signal to the downside. I will need to wait on other confirmations, and it needs to start making lower lows And yeah, so y'all, again, I hope these videos are very, very helpful. I always try to point out certain things when I see them and hope that we can use it as a teachable moment, right? So I am super, super excited. And yeah, I hope that everyone have a very productive day, a very profitable day. Let me say that. And we're learning from the SPY today. SPY was a really, really good trade. And I always like to leave you with this, y'all. Be blessed as well as a blessing unto others. Until next time.